Dusk settled over the coastal town of Maine, the last strands of sunlight shimmering on silver waves before slipping through the tall windows of the grand old theater perched on the cliffs. Inside, the orchestra tested their first notes, music drifting through corridors steeped in history. On the top floor, in a quiet dressing room, Evelyn Carter stood alone before the mirror. Her white gown hugged her slender figure, intricate lace trembling with each uneven breath. Her trembling fingers touched the pearl necklace glittering softly, the last gift from her grandmother, who once told her, "Real happiness doesn't need grandeur. It only needs you to know you are loved." Evelyn whispered to her reflection, "As long as he comes, as long as he takes my hand and walks me out there, everything will be fine." But her words fell like a fragile prayer into the stillness. In her dark brown eyes, worry flickered beyond her control. She turned to Hannah, her childhood friend, pacing nervously with a phone clutched in hand. Hannah shook her head, lips pressed tight. "He's still not answering. Maybe Andrew is just nervous. Men get jittery before weddings all the time." Evelyn forced a smile, though her chest tightened. She wanted to believe it, to believe Andrew was only overwhelmed by the weight of the moment. But his silence stretched like a void, swallowing the air around her. "Why do I feel this way? Why does my heart beat like it's warning me?" Evelyn thought, her gaze fixed on the lifeless phone in Hannah's grasp. From the hall below rose laughter, the clinking of glasses. Over 200 guests waited eagerly, unaware that on this floor, the bride stood on the edge of collapse. Hannah came closer, resting a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Evie, you still have time. He'll come. Don't let fear ruin your day." Evelyn's lips trembled as she whispered, "Hannah, what if he never comes?" The question fell heavy, more deafening than the music rising from below. Hannah had no reply, only a tighter squeeze of comfort. Then suddenly the door creaked open. Evelyn spun around, heart hammering. For a fleeting second she imagined Andrew appearing, breathless, apologetic, desperate. But the figure at the threshold was not Andrew. It was Daniel Moore, Andrew's older brother, the renowned conductor she had only glimpsed briefly at family dinners. His face was calm, unreadable, his gaze shadowed with something that promised to alter everything. The air in the room thickened as Daniel stepped inside, closing the heavy wooden door behind him. The amber light cast shadows across his face, sharp, unreadable. Evelyn felt her heartbeat stumble, though not from relief. "Where is Andrew?" Her voice cracked, eyes widening. Daniel did not answer right away. His gaze drifted from Evelyn's trembling face to Hannah's anxious one, before he finally moved farther in, each step steady, deliberate, like the measured beat of a conductor's baton. "He's not coming." 3 simple words fell like a blade, slicing the air in two. "What the hell are you talking about?" Hannah snapped, anger flooding her tone. "Don't be cryptic, Daniel. Where is he?" Daniel pulled his phone from his pocket and held it out. On the screen, a single message glowed. Evelyn held her breath as her eyes traced the words. "I'm sorry. I can't do this. Tell Evelyn I need time." Her chest tightened, the air caught in her throat. Her knees buckled, and Hannah rushed to steady her. No, he wouldn't leave me like this." Evelyn's whisper broke, hot tears streaking through her carefully painted makeup. Daniel stood still, expressionless. "Andrew has always had a talent for running," he said evenly, as if he had expected this all along. Evelyn's tear-filled eyes snapped to him, raw with anguish and a flicker of fury. You knew? You let me stand here and believe. Daniel's grip on his phone tightened, his gaze darkening. Yet instead of an answer, he stepped closer, voice low, steady. Evelyn, you need to face it. He isn't walking through that door tonight. Maybe not ever. A bitter laugh broke from Evelyn's throat, more pain than humor. She buried her face in her hands, gasping for air. Images splintered through her mind. Andrew's promises of forever, his whispered declarations of love. Now all of it lay in shards at her feet. I gave up everything. My apartment, my career breaks, my time, my music, all for this, only to be abandoned like a fool? Hannah wrapped her arms around her, murmuring softly, Evie, you don't need this wedding. We can walk out, tell everyone the truth, leave this nightmare behind. You don't owe anyone a thing. But Evelyn shook her head. Her gaze locked on Daniel. Something about the way he stood, calm, unshaken, prepared, made her tremble. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment. That very certainty unsettled her. Why? Why was it you who walked through that door, Daniel? Why not someone else? She whispered, her voice breaking under the weight of confusion and fragile hope. Daniel didn't flinch, his eyes fixed on hers, deep and steady. Because someone had to tell you the truth before the rest of the world finds out. Andrew isn't coming back, and now you have to decide what you'll do with tonight. Silence pressed in once more. Evelyn's fingers clenched at the fabric of her gown, her breath quick and shallow, her heart shattered. In that instant, she knew her life had taken a turn she had never imagined, and Daniel stood squarely at the threshold of it. Evelyn stood frozen, her heart pierced as if by 1,000 needles. The room had fallen into suffocating silence, broken only by her ragged breaths and the faint whisper of wind through the window. Hannah's arms were still wrapped around her, but Evelyn knew the truth spoken moments ago had already shifted everything. Andrew was not coming back. Daniel stepped closer, the click of his leather shoes echoing softly on the wooden floor. He didn't glance at Hannah, didn't attempt to soothe. His gaze was fixed on Evelyn, steady, unwavering, unnerving. Evelyn. His voice was low, deliberate. You don't have to walk down there and tell everyone you've been abandoned. Evelyn lifted her tear-streaked face, glaring at him. Then what do you suggest? Do you have any idea? Over 200 people are waiting out there. My career, my reputation, it will all crumble because of one cowardly text from Andrew. Daniel stopped just a step away, lowering his tone, each word striking like the steady beat of a drum. There is another way. Hannah instantly cut in, moving between them. Don't you dare. Daniel, if you're about to say what I think you are, this is not the time for one of your insane ideas. But Daniel didn't look at her. His eyes never left Evelyn. I can take his place. Evelyn's breath caught, disbelief flooding her. What did you just say? Daniel gave the smallest nod, his tone unflinching. I will marry you. Tonight you won't have to walk out there alone. Hannah scoffed, sharp and furious. You've lost your mind. This isn't a performance, Daniel. Evelyn, listen to me. We can leave right now. Don't let him turn this into some twisted family charade. But Evelyn barely heard her friend. Her ears rang, her heart pounded violently. Just an hour ago, she believed she would marry Andrew. Now, standing before her was his brother, offering a path no one could have imagined. Why? Evelyn's voice trembled. Why would you do this? To protect the family's name? To guard your own reputation? Daniel paused, his eyes softening, if only briefly, but enough to shake her to her core. Partly, yes, but mostly. He drew in a long breath, weighing each word. I couldn't bear to watch you humiliated like this. Not you. Her lips parted, but no sound came. In that moment, Evelyn felt small, suspended at a crossroads. Run and face the shame? Or take this outstretched hand, knowing the road ahead would be riddled with uncertainty? Daniel extended his hand, firm and steady. If you agree, this will be a marriage on paper only. 1 year, then we part quietly. You'll keep your freedom, your music, your friends. No one will force you. But tonight, you won't be the bride left behind. Evelyn stared at his hand, her pulse hammering. In his eyes, there was no mockery, no manipulation, only something unnamed, quiet yet unyielding. And she knew this moment would alter the course of her entire life. The murmur of the audience below rose like an endless tide, mingling with the tuning notes of the string orchestra. Evelyn stood at the doorway, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Her mind was chaos. Andrew gone, Daniel's hand extended, and a hall full of people waiting for her to appear. Evie, you don't have to do this, Hannah whispered, her voice breaking. We can walk away. No one can force you. Evelyn looked at her friend, lips pressed hard together. She wanted to believe Hannah, but her gaze slid back to Daniel. He stood tall, broad-shouldered, face composed with unnerving calm, his hand still extended, patient, waiting. No pressure, no demand, only waiting. If I refuse, what then? A hall of faces staring at me like a spectacle. If I agree, my life will veer into an unimaginable path. A long breath. Evelyn placed her hand in his. All right, let's get married. Daniel inclined his head, his eyes softening slightly. Without another word, he guided her down the corridor. The click of their shoes echoed in the grand hallway, blending with the growing whispers from the audience as the doors swung open. 200 faces turned. Gasps rippled through the hall. A radiant bride in white, walking not beside her groom, but his older brother. The atmosphere stretched taut, like a violin string pulled to the edge. Evelyn clutched Daniel's arm as they moved step by step down the petal-strewn aisle. Her heart pounded violently. Whose life is this? Mine? Or a role I've been forced to play? The officiant faltered at the sight, but only for a heartbeat before regaining his professional poise. His voice carried solemnly through the breathless silence of the hall. Do you take... Evelyn heard her own voice, shaky yet steady enough. I do. Then Daniel's turn. His answer came without hesitation. I do. Applause broke, hesitant at first, then swelling into a ripple. Evelyn barely heard it. The world blurred, sound fading, as she felt Daniel's hand tighten lightly around hers. When the officiant murmured, "You may now kiss the bride," Daniel leaned down. The kiss was brief, controlled, almost ceremonial, a gesture to end the chaos, yet Evelyn's heart jolted, a sudden spark that left her breathless, shaken. Beneath the flood of light, Evelyn realized she had just entered the strangest marriage of her life, with the man she had never imagined standing beside. That night, after the strangest wedding of her life, Evelyn followed Daniel out of the old theater. The car moved quietly through the city, streetlights spilling across the window and casting fleeting shadows over her face. Evelyn sat still, her hands folded over the folds of her gown, her thoughts a tangled storm. She wanted to ask, to scream, but her throat locked tight. Daniel sat beside her, silent as stone. The passing light cut across his features, calm, distant, unreadable. At last, Evelyn whispered, "Do you regret it?" Daniel turned, his eyes meeting hers, deep and unwavering. "No." One word. Clear. Absolute. And silence fell again. When the car stopped before the towering Manhattan penthouse, Evelyn lifted her eyes to the building that seemed to scrape the sky. A hollow weight sank deeper in her chest. Inside, the apartment was immaculate. Marble floors, glass walls, a palette of black, white, and steel. No family photos, no sign of life, just a showroom out of a magazine. Daniel led her to the final room at the end of the hall. The door opened to reveal a spacious suite, a wide bed, floor-to-ceiling windows facing Central Park, empty bookshelves, and on the nightstand, a single folded card with 2 words, "Welcome home." Evelyn brushed her fingertips over the card. Its simplicity tightened her chest unexpectedly. She turned to him, her voice low. "So, how are we supposed to live?" Daniel stood in the doorway, his hand on the frame. "Clearly, simply. You have your room. I have mine. No bindings, no interference. 1 year, then we part quietly. You keep your freedom, your music, your friends. I ask for nothing more." Evelyn nodded faintly, a mix of relief and bitterness curling inside. A marriage with no love, no intimacy, only an agreement. In the days that followed, the rules held. They lived like strangers beneath the same roof. Separate rooms, locked doors. Shared meals were rare, reduced to polite greetings. No goodnight embraces, no laughter. Only footsteps echoing in the hall. Yet Evelyn began to notice. Each morning, a plate of food awaited on the counter. Toast, a medium-boiled egg, chamomile tea. Exactly what she once favored. No words, no acknowledgement. But she knew it was Daniel. Late at night, after long rehearsals, the hallway lights were always softened, warm. The thermostat set precisely as she preferred. One morning, after she sprained her wrist, a cold compress and therapy guide appeared at her door. No note, no explanation. How closely does he watch me? Why would someone so distant care about such tiny details? Evelyn wondered in sleepless nights. Within the walls of deliberate distance, she felt something uncanny. Daniel's quiet presence in every corner, subtle yet undeniable. And it stirred her heart in ways her reason refused to allow. One late evening, after a long rehearsal with the orchestra, Evelyn returned to the penthouse. She was exhausted, hair loose and tangled, shoulders heavy. The apartment was as quiet as ever. Daniel wasn't in the living room. Only a soft golden light glowed from the kitchen, where a neatly wrapped plate of still warm food waited on the counter. She smiled faintly through her fatigue. These little gestures left her both unsettled and moved. Daniel never asked, never explained. He simply did, as if letting actions speak louder than words. Another night, as she passed down the hallway, she noticed a door, always locked, now standing ajar. Curiosity tugged at her. She pushed it open and froze. The spacious room glowed with warm, gentle lights. Before her was a fully equipped music studio, a grand piano, violin stands, recording microphones, shelves lined with classical and contemporary scores, a whiteboard scrawled with notes. Ideas for community music program for children. Evelyn's breath caught. Her trembling hands brushed the piano keys, the sheets of handwritten notes. Every detail mirrored dreams she had once whispered aloud, thinking no one had listened. Daniel's voice came from the doorway, deep and even. "You once said you wanted a place to create something truly your own. A place not dependent on grants, not bound to proving your worth. I thought, you should have it. Evelyn turned, her eyes shimmering with tears. You did all this. For me? Daniel didn't step inside. He leaned against the frame, gaze steady, not seeking thanks. No words needed. Just use it. That's enough. Her throat tightened. For the first time, the cold fortress around him cracked, revealing something she had never seen before. A quiet, enduring care that asked for nothing in return. From that day on, the room became Evelyn's sanctuary. Each morning, before heading to rehearsal, she slipped inside, scribbling notes on the whiteboard. At night, she sometimes found them neatly rearranged, as if someone had silently watched over and supported her. One evening, while she worked on a piece for a children's program, Daniel appeared unexpectedly. His sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. He stood quietly at a distance. Evelyn glanced up, flustered. Are you spying on me? The corner of his mouth lifted faintly, but his reply was simple. I'm listening to you play, and it's better than any concert I've ever conducted. Evelyn laughed, a sound lighter than she'd made in weeks. Warmth spread through her chest. In the penthouse that once felt cold and hollow, there was now a corner filled with her breath, her music. And woven into every note was Daniel's silent presence. The man who had given her not just a room, but the belief that her dreams were worth existing. Since the music room had opened, the air in the penthouse had changed. Evelyn and Daniel still lived by their rules, separate rooms, no ties, no intrusion, but cracks had formed, letting light slip through. One rainy evening, Evelyn left the studio, resin dust clinging faintly to her wrist. The aroma of food lured her toward the kitchen. She stopped short. Daniel, sleeves rolled up, a black apron at his waist, was fumbling with a pan of pasta, eyes flicking between the stove and his phone like a student learning a new score. Evelyn couldn't help it. She laughed softly. The sound rang clear, and Daniel looked up, startled. Did you just laugh? Leaning against the doorway, she smiled. Maybe. You look different tonight. He tilted his head, silent for a moment before saying quietly, I like it. Shame it's so rare. His words disarmed her. For the first time, the ice in his tone cracked, revealing something warm beneath. That dinner was unpretentious. Mushroom pasta, red wine, candlelight flickering. Evelyn watched as he carefully set her glass before her. Those hands, used to commanding orchestras, now served a single person, her. You don't usually cook, do you? No. But I thought, you deserved more than hurried meals. The simple words pressed into her chest. She hid her reaction with a sip of wine, though her pulse betrayed her. After dinner, Daniel cleared the dishes. Evelyn lingered, tracing circles on her glass. Candlelight played across his face, softening the edges. She realized she didn't want the evening to end. This silence with him near was no longer suffocating. It was warm. When did I start feeling safe like this? With him, she wondered. Days later, the shift deepened. Daniel often paused when they crossed paths. How was rehearsal today? Evelyn answered with a smile, sometimes more. Occasionally they shared tea late at night, brief exchanges that eased the loneliness. The orchestra's fundraising gala became a turning point. Evelyn, in an emerald gown, glowed under chandeliers. Daniel at her side in black tie looked every bit her equal. As they entered, whispers rose. They're breathtaking together. Like they were meant for this. Heat rushed to Evelyn's cheeks. Daniel leaned closer, murmuring, "Let them believe it." Throughout the night, his gestures spoke louder than words. The steady hand guiding her through the crowd, the way his gaze sought her in every pause. Each subtle touch sent her heartbeat into chaos. When the gala ended, rain poured. They laughed as they dashed outside, water beading on her hair and dress. She reached for the car door, but his hand stopped hers. "Wait." She looked up. In the blur of rain and lamplight, his eyes glowed with something fierce, stripped of restraint. He held her hand firmly, unwilling to let go. "Do you know how long I've wanted this?" She never got to answer. Daniel bent slowly, cautiously, as if afraid haste would break the moment. Inch by inch, his breath mingled with hers, until the kiss came. Unhurried, deep, trembling like the opening movement of a long-awaited symphony. Evelyn closed her eyes, her lips meeting his without hesitation. Rain chilled her skin, but inside, fire spread fast, devouring every barrier. In that instant, she knew. Their marriage on paper had turned into something else. Real, fervent, and dangerously irresistible. Since the kiss in the rain, Evelyn no longer saw Daniel the same way. The penthouse, once cold, now felt brighter in the mornings. She found him in the kitchen and exchanged small smiles instead of distant nods. At night, they sometimes shared tea, and the silence between them felt no longer heavy, but calm. "Maybe I was wrong to think this was just a marriage on paper," Evelyn thought as her fingers moved across the keys in the music room. She felt herself beginning to trust, beginning to open her heart. But trust barely had time to grow before the past returned. 3 days after the gala, the sky hung gray, drizzle falling like mist. Evelyn finished rehearsal later than usual. Pulling her coat close, she hurried along the slick sidewalk. Then she froze. Under the dim street lamp stood a man, hair soaked, suit rumpled, face gaunt, eyes she knew too well. "Andrew," she whispered, her heart lurching. He stepped closer, voice raw. "I know you don't want to see me, but please, listen to me this once." Evelyn hesitated, wanting to turn away, yet her feet rooted to the wet pavement. At last, as if drawn by some unseen force, she let Andrew lead her into the cafe next to the hall, the same place she used to study scores as a student. Warm light and coffee aroma filled the air, but Evelyn's chest was ice. Andrew pulled a thick envelope from his coat and set it on the wooden table. "The truth isn't what you think. You need to see this." Evelyn slid the contents out. Dozens of printed emails, all from Daniel's address. Subject lines clinical, detached. Carter progress observation, weekly rehearsal schedule, assessment of collaboration potential. Some had photographs attached, her performing, lecturing, even walking the hallways 3 years ago. Each page cut deep. Evelyn's hands shook as she whispered, "No, this can't be real." Andrew's eyes locked on hers, heavy with sorrow and bitterness. "Daniel knew you long before I did. He tracked you, invested in the funds you worked with, built connections around you. Evelyn, did it ever cross your mind that this entire marriage might have been his design?" Her chest tightened. Memories she treasured, the music room, careful breakfasts, the kiss in the rain, twisted in her mind. What if it was all orchestrated? What if I was never truly loved? She bolted up, chair screeching. "Enough! I have to go." Andrew called after her, but Evelyn ran into the night. Rain lashed her face, blending with hot tears. The city suddenly felt foreign. Back at the penthouse, the rooms were dark. Daniel wasn't home. Evelyn stood in the stillness, then walked into the music room. The lamp lit the whiteboard where his words remained. Music is the only thing that never betrays. Now those words felt like an accusation. She collapsed to the floor, clutching her head, one thought pounding. Was this love, or a score he composed with me as the unwitting player? Sleep never came that night. Near dawn, she packed a small suitcase, some scores, notebooks, and the wooden box with her grandmother's necklace. No note. No explanation. At 1:45 in the morning, the train pulled away from Manhattan. Evelyn sat by the window as darkness rushed past, her heart hollow. She only knew she needed a place to breathe, her grandmother's old cabin in Vermont. A place without Daniel, without promises, without questions that tore her apart. The old cabin in Vermont sat tucked among wet maples. A week had passed since Evelyn left Manhattan. By day, she moved through chores on autopilot. By night, she stared at the seams of the wooden ceiling, as if answers might be hidden there. Daniel kept flickering in and out of her mind. Breakfasts left waiting, the warm-lit music room, the kiss in the rain, each one then torn by the stack of cold emails and Andrew's words. Her trust had shattered into a maze. On Saturday afternoon, mist settling over the trees, a dark car stopped at the gate. Evelyn stiffened when she saw the man who stepped out. Richard Moore, Daniel and Andrew's father. The man who had once dismissed her now stood on the porch, coat damp, face more hollow than she remembered. His voice was low, the arrogance stripped away. "I'm not here to take you back. I'm here for the truth. My son doesn't know how to say it, and I caused too much of this." Evelyn blocked the doorway, fingers digging into the frame. "You look down on me. Why come now?" Richard glanced at the steps, then met her gaze. "Because I made a mistake, and because I'm the one who pushed it too far." He set a folder on the porch table. "A few days before the wedding, I wired money to Andrew to make him leave." Bank statements showed dates and sums. Numbness spread up Evelyn's arms. Why? Legacy, reputation, the entitlement of a powerful family that thinks it can chart everyone's future. A dry laugh. "I saw a young woman with no pedigree. I feared you'd climb through marriage, feared scandal. I was wrong. And when Andrew vanished, I assumed Daniel would cancel, send the guests home. But he..." Richard's voice roughened. "He stepped in. I was stunned. None of us knew, not Andrew, not I, not even his mother. He made that choice in the moment, and it blindsided our entire family." Evelyn swayed. The image of Daniel at the dressing room door flashed through her mind like a quiet flare. "And the emails?" she asked, forcing her voice to hold. He nodded, sliding another stack across. "They're real, and they have context. Daniel tracked your career, not your private life. He funded certain programs you worked with, had an assistant compile performance schedules and media risk summaries, dry administrative work around his grants. He admired you for years, but didn't know how to approach you. When Andrew started seeing you, Daniel stepped back. On the wedding day, after Andrew's text, the only thing left was to stand between you and humiliation. He didn't protect me. He protected you." He exhaled, staring out toward the trees. "I learned you left that same night. Andrew told me what he'd handed you. I came, not to argue, but to own my fault. I am the reason you were abandoned. And I'm also the one who invented a version of you that never existed." Evelyn's defenses softened, replaced by shock and a tender ache. His words straightened the crooked picture in her mind. The abrupt wedding, the quietly built music room, the nameless, small gestures, these aligned not with a puppeteer, but with someone who loved clumsily. Richard rose and bowed his head, a rare humility for him. Daniel doesn't know how to say "I love you." His silence can wound, but he has loved you longer than he dares admit. The rest, only you can decide. He turned to go, then paused. From his coat, he drew a thin, unmarked envelope and set it beside the folder. "This arrived at my house this morning. I believe it's meant for you." His car disappeared beyond the maples. Evelyn remained, listening to the wind along the eaves like a prelude. When her hands steadied, she opened the envelope. Inside lay a leather-bound notebook, the corners worn. Familiar handwriting on the first page. September 23rd, 3 years ago. I never believed in love at first sight. Until today, at the open rehearsal, when the girl playing the chaconne seemed to hold the hall's breath in her bow. I understood what it means to be called by a sound. She turned the pages, brief notes followed. The way she pressed her lips when the conductor stopped her. How deeply she bowed to an audience even in a run-through. A pencil-faint dream of a community program. If someday it's possible, let me teach kids who have no instruments. Then came the entries from when she appeared with Andrew. If you are happy, I will let distance keep you safe. And the wedding day. The message arrived. Only one way to stand between her and disgrace. No time to measure consequences. Ink had blurred in places. She couldn't tell if it was rain or a hand that lingered too long on the page. Closing the journal against her chest, Evelyn wept. Tears no longer bitter, but released. Not a plan. Love, awkward, quiet, but true. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the maple leaves, scattering golden patterns across the porch. Evelyn hadn't slept. In front of her lay Daniel's leather-bound journal, its final page scrawled with shaky words. If one day she leaves, I will let her go. But if she returns, it will be the only time I beg. Don't leave again. She closed the journal, pressing it to her chest. Her heart pounded fiercely. I can't stay here forever. I have to find him. That afternoon, Evelyn returned to Manhattan. The city buzzed as if nothing had changed. Yet every light seemed sharper, every step heavier with hope and fear. That night, at the Grand Hall of the Music Academy, the annual gala for the free children's music program glittered under chandeliers. The orchestra played a welcoming symphony, and on the podium stood Daniel, elegant in black tie, his deep voice steady as he spoke about the power of music to heal the soul. Evelyn stood quietly at the back, every word caught in her throat, but his eyes kept searching the audience, as though for one face alone. When they found hers, Daniel faltered. Without hesitation, Evelyn walked down the aisle. Whispers rose, but she paid no heed. Reaching the stage, she lifted her chin and called, "Daniel." The hall fell silent. Evelyn clasped his hand, gaze unwavering. I came back, not for contracts, not for appearances, for love, for you. Stunned at first, Daniel's eyes softened, brightened like the stage lights above. He set the microphone aside, stepped forward, and drew her into his arms, holding her as if the world itself had hushed. Applause thundered, yet Evelyn heard only the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear. Daniel lowered his forehead to hers, eyes overflowing with relief. "I've been waiting," he whispered, voice raw but certain. Tears streamed as she smiled. "And I've returned. This time, I won't leave again." They stood there, framed by music and light, needing no more words. Their reunion was a crescendo, simple true, like the music they both lived for. 1 year later, a small Brooklyn street rang with the sounds of young violins. On the wooden gate hung a carved sign, Evelyn Carter Community Music Center, for every child. Ivy framed the doorway, and from inside came the laughter of children holding violins for the very first time. Few knew that behind it all was Daniel's quiet support. He funded every instrument, every chair, every scholarship. His name appeared nowhere. No articles praised him. He simply watched from a distance, in a plain white shirt, pride shining in his eyes as Evelyn guided the children. Evelyn felt it, and it made her heart even surer. Their love was no longer a contract, no longer a salvage of dignity, but a true choice, free and lasting. When autumn came, Evelyn received a special invitation. The old Seaside Theater, the very place of their chaotic wedding, asked her to return and perform at a heritage fundraiser. Evelyn smiled at the letter. She knew the place of her pain now needed healing. Weeks later, on the evening of the benefit, she and Daniel stood once more in the wooden hall. Waves whispered beyond, sunset painting the seats that had once witnessed confusion. But this time, no crowd of strangers, no 200 curious eyes, only close friends, a few colleagues and children from the music center. Evelyn wore a simple white dress, her hair loose. Daniel, in a dark suit, gazed at her warmly. Holding her hand, he whispered, "Today, there's no contract, only our vow." Before everyone, they exchanged new promises, short, honest, without grandeur. When Daniel kissed her, applause filled the hall. But Evelyn heard only his heartbeat, steady as an endless melody. In the front row, Richard rose. He stepped forward, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. "I was wrong, but seeing you both happy today, all I can do is give my blessing." Daniel nodded. Evelyn smiled gently, replying, "The past is closed. What matters now is the future." Andrew approached next, his face a little uncertain but his eyes sincere. "I ran away, but now, I only hope you two find real happiness." Evelyn glanced at Daniel, then nodded. For the first time, no resentment remained, only forgiveness. Sunset spilled across the theater's worn roof, waves striking in rhythm. In the Seaside Hall, a year after chaos, every knot was untangled. The pain, the misunderstandings, the long silence. Evelyn clasped Daniel's hand, knowing that this time they were stepping into a true beginning, free, peaceful, and complete.